All right, one of the first things you're going to want to do when starting a missional community or a small group Bible study is pick a topic. People want to know what's the content going to be, what's that discipleship going to be shaped around. And although the temptation is to just walk into the room and ask them, well, what do you want to do? They are actually looking to you as the leader to have some of your own ideas, maybe even your own suggestion. So come in with a few of them. And I'm going to give you the top 3 angles on picking a topic for your missional community. First one would be pick something from the Bible. I think the Bible comes first. Everything else you're going to do with a discussion, study guide, whatever, it's going to be making a copy, a second version of the Bible. And so whenever you can go directly back to the scriptures, I think that's best. Because we also want people in our communities to see that they can handle the scriptures directly on their own. So whenever you're in doubt, go back in that direction. And I'll give you 5 questions that you could ask virtually of any text in Scripture. The first one being, retell the story in your own words. You're going to be surprised at just how much comes out of people when they have to translate for themselves what was just said in today's language. They're already piecing it together for themselves. So first ask, retell the story in your own words. Secondly, what does this tell us about God? God's the hero of every story or lesson that the Bible gives us. And so don't run down the trail of all the different characters. You got to make sure we know what have we come to understand about God through this text. Then you ask, what do we now understand? What does this passage tell us about people? Right? Because we want to understand what it means to our humanity. And then fourth, you make the turn towards the personal. What should this change for us? After talking about God, talking about humanity in general, what about you and me and the people in this room? What is going to be different in our lives because of what God has shared with us? And then fifth and finally, I think it's also important to ask the question, who else needs this? Discipleship doesn't stop with just who's in the room. It's got to spill to other people. If it's good news for us, it's good news for someone out there. So you can ask those 5 questions directly, or oftentimes what I find is you'll find different kind of questions surrounding those topics. A recent missional community leader told me, we didn't actually ask any of those questions, but every question that we did ask somehow covered the rest of those, and that's the point. And if they can get used to asking those 5 questions for themselves, that'll help them read the Bible on their own as well. So first, try a study on the Bible. Secondly, you could think about doing a book study or a study guide. There are so many of those out there. I've started with those in the instances where I have a really specific audience, say a parenting issue, but parenting was the commonality of people in the room. Maybe we did read a book on parenting and did follow the discussion guide on it. Or if there was a specific need, let's say finances is a shared need in the room, well, great. You start with the audience or you start with the need, and that could be a great way to kick off a missional community as well. I will tell you this, if you do grab a study guide, rework the questions for yourselves. You're not supposed to read all of the questions. You're not supposed to answer them exactly the way they're setting it up. Read your audience and rework the questions to yourself. Usually that means aiming at more application and less observation. You also want more open questions and fewer closed questions. So if it's going to answer with a yes or a no, that's probably not the best question to go with. And something else I'll throw in there is you might not want to have the questions and study guide in front of them as well. Some people work well with it, but other times, especially early on in a missional community, any one time there's a nervous silence, what do people do? They look down at the paper. That's keeping them from connecting with each other. You kind of got to fight through that uncomfortable moment of silence. And so if they keep if they're using those questions in front of them as a crutch, take them away from them and just ask the questions for yourself as the leader. And then third and finally, another way of having content for your missional community discussion is using the sermons from the Sunday morning teaching. Now, personally, if there's enough interest here at our church to do that, by enough interest, I'd say if a third of the missional communities would like a study guide to match the Sunday messages, I'll be able to produce those. So just reply to me and let me know if that's the case. The value of it is great in terms of people are already were there, they're already thinking about it. Why not go to that next level in the topic? The reason I don't necessarily jump into that as the recommendation is what's said on Sunday morning is kind of hit or miss. If it landed in their hearts, that's great. If it didn't, well, that happens sometimes because there's a few hundred people in the room. But the beauty of what you have in a missional community or small group Bible study is you know the names, you know the stories, you know what they need. And so you're the best one to be in that spot of crafting a discussion around them. So you might not always want to use the sermons because they might not be hitting people as directly as you can, week in and week out. So pick your topic, keep going from here. These are some of the starter things that we do when we get it off the ground.